Welcome to Driven to Lead. I'm your host, Wayne Brannon. In this series, we explore the real world stories of key executives to find the leadership lessons that help move us all forward. If you like these conversations, we'd really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe and like button. It'll help us out a lot. But now we got another great program for you today, so let's make it happen. It's great to have on the program today Mark Poeschl, who's the Vice Chairman and CEO of First McNess Company. First McNess is in the animal feed business, and Mark has been in the animal feed business pretty much his entire career with companies like Cargill and Ralston Purina, and he's worked around the world. So we have a global executive we're talking to today. He's worked in Africa, in the Middle East, and in Europe, as well as North America. Right now, Mark also serves as the CEO of DFS Oskaloosa, and he's a board member of the board of directors of Devonish Nutrition. Both of those companies wholly owned U.S. subsidiaries of EasyBio, which is the parent of First McNess Company in Rockford, Illinois, where he leads that business. And right now, I'm also going to share with you that the American Feed Industry Association has also selected and elected Mark as the chair-elect. He'll be taking that position in May of 2026. So, Mark, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Great to be here, Wayne.
I was just going to say, I can't imagine someone with a deeper level of experience across an industry as you have. Did you always want to be in the animal feed business?
Well, I grew up in a little town in Nebraska, and mostly when you grow up in a town of 490 people, you just kind of want to get out of town. So, no, you had no idea where your
Yeah,
career was going to take you. You just knew that there weren't a great many opportunities in a town that small. So, I
right.
was the first member of my family to go to college, and you just hoped that you had an opportunity to have some kind of a career. And in my case, I wanted a career in agriculture.
Well, some kind of career indeed you've had. So tell us a little bit about First McNess Company. It's a international company, and you've got a broad kind of scope across the animal feed business. I'd like to hear more about it.
Well, First McNess in and of itself is kind of an interesting little company. It was founded in 1908 here in Northern Illinois by a couple of gentlemen, Mr. First and Mr. McNess, that arguably invented the safety seal for home goods products. And that's how they started the company. They had home
Wow,
goods,
interesting.
vanilla, and baking products. And it really wasn't until 1959 that the family ownership introduced animal feed products. And they
Okay.
evolved from the home goods into animal feeds. And today we are 100% animal feeds. And we like to say that if an animal consumes it, a farm animal, we'll
Yeah.
sell it. And really that's our uniqueness. We'll sell commodity products, premixes, nutritional products, health products, specialty products, and we do that all under one umbrella. A lot of our competitors will sell all those products, but they will do it under different divisions. So if a farmer wants to buy
Right.
those products, they'll have to maybe make 3 or 4 different phone calls. With
hmm
McNess, they make one call and we'll sell it to them all
Yeah.
under one umbrella. So we make it
Yeah.
very easy to do business.
Yeah, and it's, I guess, I typically wouldn't think about this kind of a product or an industry, but, if you have a number of farm animals, you get different types of animals, you got animals with different needs. Perhaps they maybe have different maladies that you have to treat through nutrition and other things. I mean, the spectrum of the product line that you have sounds incredibly broad to kind of meet all those needs.
Well, and the expertise that it takes to meet the needs of those animals. Of course, we
Right,
employ
right.
PhD nutritionists. We have a research farm in Western Iowa where we do research for developing new products that will treat certain health needs of animals. So, yeah, it's a very unique industry, and we develop a lot of unique products to address the needs of farm animals.
Yeah, that's great. What kind of market share would you have, let's say in North America? Do you have a number like that, or do you have some measure of kind of how much of the industry that you cover?
Well, we're a relatively small player in the
Okay.
market. We are playing primarily in the upper Midwest, and we also
Okay.
serve a share of the market in the Southeast U.S. In the Southeast
Okay.
U.S., in the dairy segment, we
Mhm.
actually have a pretty large segment of the dairy market in
Yeah.
the Southeast, which would be in Florida and South Georgia. But when you
Hmm.
look at the U.S. market, companies like Cargill, like Purina, like a lot of the big players that
Hmm.
cover the broad spectrum of the geography of the
Hmm.
U.S. and international, they're still the big players, and we still kind of peck around the edges of that. But
Yeah.
in the markets we serve, I think we do a pretty good job.
I'm sure you do. And what would your customers say would be the reason that they like working with you as opposed to some of the bigger companies? Is it customized service? Is it care to really care about their needs and design specific things for them? I mean, what would be that competitive advantage that you'd have for those kind of
Well,
customers?
one, our products work. Secondly,
Yeah.
we're that company when they need a product on a Saturday or Sunday delivered to them. We're the
Yeah.
ones that will
Yeah.
have our trucks on their farm or their
Hmm.
operation that will be there for them. We'll
Hmm.
take their calls. Our personnel will be there 24/7 to serve their needs. So, we're a little more personalized in what we do for our customers, and I think that makes us a little bit different maybe than what some of our competitors will do.
Well, that's said in a very tactful way. It sounds like it's a big advantage for you, and I and
Yeah.
I know as a customer I would feel that way. So good, that's great. So are there some challenges? I mean, if you look at what's going on in the economy, there's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, things still look fairly good for 2026 and beyond. Are there some things going on the agricultural side of the business you source from, or in the animal feed business specifically that they're on the horizon that you're kind of preparing for?
Well, we're all concerned about the economics of agriculture, whether or not our customers can be profitable. The cattle market has been very, very good for several years now. The dairy markets are a concern on whether or not our dairy customers are going to be able to make profits in selling milk.
Hmm.
There have been some variables in the swine market. The poultry market has been up and down. So that plays a role in the success of our business and businesses like ours. I think the
Hmm.
thing that we look at on a longer term basis is a growing population and the demand for meat, milk, and eggs. And
Yeah.
on the longer term, as long as consumers still want to consume meat, milk, and eggs, both domestically and internationally, that plays well for a business like ours.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really interesting that all of those products, that we consume, meat, milk, and eggs, if you put it in those categories, it's so important about how the animals are cared for
Yes.
that drive those products that we consume, right? So there's a high correlation between the quality of what they ingest and the quality of what we ingest. And I don't know if we think about it that way all the time, but that's critically important part of your business.
Well, it is, and I think that consumers really, it's important that they understand the care that farmers, small or
Mm.
large, uh,
Right.
place in how they take care of the animals, how they
Mhm.
take care of the nutrition and the health of the
Mhm.
animals. There's a
Yeah.
little misconception about the factory farms and those sorts of
Yeah.
operations.
Right.
That's the livelihood of these individuals, and
Of
and
course.
you know they take a great deal of pride in the way that they care for the animals and the livelihood that provides for them. And so, we provide a service, we provide the types of products and health products that allow those animals to thrive, and we take a great deal of pride in that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Really, really important. Well, thanks for that background on your company and the industry overall. And I think it opens up a little insights. But as you know, Mark, this program is about learning the leadership lessons that come from the experience and the real life stories of people like yourself, key executives who've actually been in the trenches and seen a few economic cycles and been around the block more than once or twice. And I'd love to hear a story of yours. I'm sure the audience would love to hear about a great success or maybe a difficult failure where you actually kind of pivoted and did something. So, as you know, I don't know yet what story you're going to tell, but I'm really excited to hear you tell us a story so that we can really talk about the leadership lessons that will benefit all of us who are a part of this.
I have, well, appreciate that question. I have tended to kind of fall into situations where I've worked with companies that are underperforming or are having very, very difficult times economically.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and when I worked for a global company, a company by the name of Pravimi, um, I moved to Europe. I remember that the gentleman that brought me to Europe, that wanted me to come and work on the executive team, the CEO of the company, about my second day on the job, he came in and he gave me two pieces of information. The first thing he said is, I know I brought you here, and I just want you to know that I think that the chances of you as an American being successful here are really low,
Mm.
which is always a
Interesting.
great thing
Yeah.
to hear.
Yeah.
The
What a great
second
message to get.
Yeah. The second thing that I want to tell you is I want you to go to France because our business there is in trouble and I need
Hmm.
you to fix that business. So
Hmm.
the third day on the job, I went to France and I went to a business and by the name of Nielay, and I was greeted by about 250 employees that were on strike.
Mm.
I drove into the parking lot. They were holding picket signs. There were tires burning. There were
Wow.
signs on the sides of buildings. There were written on the side, Mr. Poeschl, help us. Of course, I
Hmm.
spoke zero French, and
Mm.
they surround my car. And I think, what do I do? How do I deal
Right.
with 250 angry French
Wow.
people?
Wow.
So I got out of the car and I started shaking hands and as best I could, I let them know that I was there and I was going to do the best I could to help them
Hmm.
through this situation. And it took 15 months.
Yeah. But what a
And
good start to just get out and show them just mutual human respect right off the gate, right? We're going to shake your hand. You're going to do your best. I think that already is a pretty good testament to getting off on the right track. And did you say it took 18 months? Is that what you said?
15 months, took 15
15 months.
months. I
Okay.
listened.
Yeah.
We couldn't address all of their concerns, but it was clear that for many years, this had been a very successful and profitable business for the owners, but there'd been
Hmm.
no investment back in this business by the
Okay.
shareholder. And
Okay.
the employees had a great deal of pride in the business, but by the same token, they were operating with machinery and with processes that were, from what I could tell, ancient. So we
Hmm.
began a process of transformation in that business. And from the time I got there until the time I left the company, we had completely transformed the business. First of all, I found that a business down the road, another French company that was owned by the same shareholder, these folks had never met one another. So we brought those two businesses together. We found synergies. We found synergies in manufacturing, in leadership, in the way that processes could work together. And my last visit there was when we had a ribbon cutting. We had a brand new factory. We had brand new warehouses. One of the first improvements we made there was for the comfort of the employees. We built new lunchrooms, new locker rooms, new parking lots for the employees, and we completely transformed that business. And it became the most profitable business for the owners in Europe. And I'm very proud of that transformation that we made there. And
Yeah.
we went from a time when employees were very unhappy to a
Right.
time when I went back for that ribbon cutting.
Yeah.
And, they were extremely happy in the business and the
Right.
same
Right.
employees. And we shook hands again, but it was under different
Okay.
circumstances.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, they didn't know what to expect the first time, but you actually became almost a folk hero to them, I expect, because here's this American that doesn't know squat about their business who's coming over to fix it. They had to have great doubts in their own minds
Yeah.
about what you were going to be able to do. So it sounds like that you must have took a deep dive into the business and looked at every process, every piece of equipment, all of the quality metrics. I'm sure you skipped over a few things. I'm sure you did. Tell us a little bit about what was the biggest challenge within all of that, whether it was the financials or whether it was the transformation of the equipment or changing processes? Was there an IT component? I mean, what was the most difficult part of that? I love the part where you introduced them to another company down the road that they didn't even know, and you found some synergies there. So that's some savings and some opportunity for growth right there. It's probably growth on there's probably shared customers and revenue side opportunities as well as some efficiencies. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that you felt made the most difference in that 15-month transformation.
The thing I found there, and that I found in most businesses that you work to turn around, are the complexities that grow in a business.
Mhm.
And the fact that when you go in and you can identify those complexities and simplify a business, whether it's a complexity in a process or a complexity in equipment or a complexity in formulas or the number of products that are being offered, and you say, we've got to simplify this business. And when you get that down to the lowest common denominator based on the demands in the market,
Right.
generally you improve a business. And that's really what we did there. We went from 15,000 formulas for animals to 3,000.
Wow. Wow, that's a
And
big move.
we didn't lose any market share in doing that.
Right.
We in fact gained market share by changing the complexities of the business. We also
Hmm.
made dramatic improvements in safety in the business. When I walked through the plant the first time, there were guards that weren't on equipment. There were people that were wandering into areas of the plant where they had no business being. And so
Hmm.
the first thing we addressed was the safety aspects of the business.
Yeah,
People that were
fantastic.
working at heights that they had no business working,
Mm.
no lockout, tag out, hot work, high
Hmm.
work. And so we
Hmm.
immediately took note of the safety aspects of the business and changed that. And that got the attention of the employees and got them working on our side right away when we were
Yeah, of
doing
course.
things that were really based on the safety for employees.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, that's tremendous. And did you find that the leadership teams who were running those operations there, were they agreeable to the changes you wanted to make? Because sometimes you go into a situation like that, and the local leadership teams who've obviously, got themselves in big trouble. That's why you were there. How did they respond? Not just, I mean, I understand the employees responded positively, but wasn't it almost an indictment that they had not done what they needed to do, that you had to come in and make change?
I needed to bring in three new leaders,
Hmm.
two of which had never been in the ag industry before.
Oh,
Two of these individuals had run GE, General Electric leasing in Europe. One of the guys had
okay.
reported directly to Jack Welch, knew nothing
Okay.
about our business, but knew
Uh-huh.
business. And I
Right.
brought him in because he needed to make tough decisions and tough personnel decisions in the business.
Hmm.
Quite
Yeah.
frankly, there were five leaders in the business that needed to be released, and all
Hmm.
five of those leaders left.
Hmm.
And the three new leaders that we brought in were really magnificent and helped make the changes in the front line that
Good.
needed to be made. And so that was also a watershed moment for the business.
Yeah, it sounds like it was. And I expected that something had happened in the leadership team, so that clears it up a little bit. But it's difficult, especially in Europe. It's very difficult to let people go. It's very costly. So those were tough decisions. I expect when you move people out of the company, there's a lot of costs buying out, their pension obligations and all the other things that are there. Been through it a number of times in Western Europe. So it's not an easy decision to make because it's sometimes a lot more expensive to move someone out of the company than it is to keep them. But if you need to make a change, you see that it's going to have a bigger down road impact on the business. You got to do it. So three managers or leadership people moving out and three new ones coming in. As someone who worked directly for Jack at GE couldn't have been cheap either for this business. Now, how big was this business in kind of in a general sense?
That was probably a quarter of $1 billion revenue business, so
Okay.
it's a big
Okay.
business. And I
Yeah, pretty
think
good
the other
sized
thing
business.
that was, the processes and the governmental processes in France also
Yep.
are a little challenging. I remember I
Yeah,
had to meet
absolutely.
with the what is in the U.S. term, the governor of
Mhm.
the part of France where this
Mhm.
business was
Right.
located, the prefector
Mhm.
or whatever the name of that
Mhm.
may
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
So that was also why it took a little longer to get that
Sure.
accomplished. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was not an easy process, but it was very satisfying to get that
And
accomplished.
how much of your personal time did this take? Because I assume you were running other operations, not just this one in France. So this was like a
Yeah,
project. This was a project among, I mean, were you covering all of Western Europe or Western and Central Europe at the time, or?
I was responsible for our businesses in Europe, Middle East, Africa, and North America at that time.
Oh, so this was a global position. So this was just one country of 50 or 60 that you were kind of focusing on.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
But I was in France one day a week for that
Yeah. Okay.
period of time.
Wow.
So, and we were also making some changes in a business in Jordan. I was in South Africa.
Hmm. Hmm.
We made some changes. We were adjusting a business in Belgium. So
Amazing.
yeah, it was a busy time.
So what would you tell our listeners about how you manage your time when you have such a broad base of business? How did you make that work? Because I know you're successful across a number of fronts. And what were a couple of the keys for your leadership formula to be able to do that? First of all, maybe being younger, having a lot of energy maybe
Oh,
helped a little bit.
yeah,
I
no
know,
kidding.
we're not 20 anymore, Mark, so when you're 20 or 30, things are a little bit easier, but boy, it's hard at any age when you have that kind of scope and international travel. I've certainly been there over the years myself. What was key to managing all of this and keeping it moving in the right direction while you were putting, let's say, an inordinate amount or at least an excessive amount of time in one or two projects that needed your extra care and feeding?
I think finding really good people and being willing to delegate to those people and
Yeah.
giving clear direction to those
Hmm.
individuals, I think
Yeah.
is absolutely clear.
Yeah.
When you do those things and you're not afraid to let those people operate,
Yeah.
that is the key. You can't be a micromanager. If you're a micromanager, you'll never get those things accomplished.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely right. And another thing we haven't talked about that I'm sure you put in place along with the delegation of authority were some metrics that probably weren't in place at the time you came in. So what were the key KPIs? Was it different by country, or did you have some that were kind of across your whole territory and then some were specific for the businesses like this one in France that you had to manage? Were there some KPIs that needed to be put in place that they weren't looking at?
Well, there's always profitability KPIs that we put in place. And at that time, the company that I worked for was owned by private equity. And that's
Hmm.
always an interesting set of circumstances as well. We were owned by a
Yeah, of course.
private equity firm in London.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the two individuals that preceded me in my role, it was
Mhm.
clear that you had one opportunity to get invited to London if you didn't meet your profitability metrics.
Get
And
invited to
if you got
London. Yeah.
called in a second time, it was pretty clear you weren't going to retain
Yeah.
your job. And
Right.
so you didn't want to get called into London a second time. And all of those that reported to me
Right.
knew that that was a pretty important profitability metric. But we had efficiency metrics around the performance of the volumes that we had to produce,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
efficiency around sales territories and what we were expected
Hmm.
to do by
Right.
by customer, by species.
Hmm.
And so, we established that based on market. You talked about market penetration and market share
Hmm.
earlier. We
Yeah.
had specific go-to-market plans by country that we were dealing with, and so
Hmm.
we built our KPIs around that.
Good. Good for you. One of the other things that's interesting, given that I worked in the European theater for a number of years as well, is the supply side of your business is also pretty complex, where there's some things that needed to be shored up there because the inter-country and the international sourcing issues with all of the import duties and the regulatory environment, it adds another layer of complexity. As you mentioned, the complexities. I was thinking about the supply side of your business as well, was probably something that needed some work.
Yeah, that it absolutely did. When I moved to Europe, there were 45 disparate businesses around the world, and
Mm-hmm.
our executive team of 5 people were tasked with combining those or condensing those into
Mm-hmm.
8 regions,
Mm-hmm.
which we did in the course of about 2 years. That also impacted the supply chain. You
Yeah.
can imagine 45 businesses each buying from these
Right.
different suppliers. So we
Oh, yeah.
established one warehouse in Europe, and
Mhm.
that was the group which we called 3PO. And
Yeah.
3PO in that one warehouse was responsible for sourcing all of our ingredients. And then those
Yeah.
8 regions pulled out of that one warehouse in Europe, made us
Yeah.
much more efficient. And we also improved our buying power, our
Right.
uh, buying dollars.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah,
lowered our
sure.
price
Yeah.
significantly.
Yeah. So yeah, when you have a third party operator for your
Yeah.
logistics warehouses, the 3PO, as you mentioned, and then I assume you established that warehouse in a duty-free zone somewhere so
Yep.
that you bring products in duty-free and then ship as you needed to country by country. There's a
Yep.
lot of efficiencies in there, not only on the purchasing side, but also on the distribution side as well. If you put the
Exactly.
warehouse in the right location, that's always a challenge as well. Most of your products were going by rail, I assume, in Europe.
Uh, r- Generally by rail, some were
Mm-hmm.
by container on,
Mm-hmm.
on truck, depending on when we
Mm-hmm.
were pulling out of vitamins out of Germany at that time.
Mm-hmm.
We were
Yeah.
we were
Yeah.
pulling on short and long containers by truck, but
Okay.
generally by rail. Some by
Interesting.
ship, actually.
Yeah. Well, I could talk to you all day about this business because I'm sure there's a lot of detail in it. But I think it's been a great kind of story to tell, our listeners because getting into the complexities of a business and handling the people side. I love the way you started the story. I mean, you ran into the people who were living it and who were unhappy. And another leader might have come in there, Mark, and said, "Well, these people they should be at work. Why are they out here protesting? Why are they on strike?" You could have taken the wrong idea about what they were doing, but you respected their point of view and you said, "There's something that needs to be fixed here." And then you started by fixing the safety issues you saw in the plant. That's a tremendous kind of testament to kind of being fair and being balanced and going in and looking at the situation and then driving it. If 15 months may sound like a long time to some people, that's incredibly fast to turn a business like that around. So, yeah, I compliment you on that. Of all the lessons that you learned from that, which one do you take with you, probably to the greatest extent?
Well, I always lead with safety, and I always
Hmm.
try to listen.
Yeah,
I mean, Mom always said you got 2 ears and one mouth for a reason.
yeah,
And I know that's
yeah,
an old, tired saying,
exactly.
but Mom was right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my mom also told me that everybody puts their pants on the same way in the morning.
That's
And
correct.
I really and that's this kind of idea of mutual human respect and shared responsibility. The people who know me know that I use that phrase very, very often, but it's really true. If we can respect everyone, whether they're above us in an organization or below us in an organization or at the same level in an organization, it doesn't matter. We're all humans trying to get to the right solution. And yeah, maybe some of us have a little more authority at times than others to take responsibility for things. But true leaders respect everyone in the process. And it sounds like you started off with that premise just naturally because of who you are. And that's a great testament to the success you had, Mark. So, yeah, congrats on that.
Well, and Wayne, when I go to a manufacturing plant to this day, I still wear my uniform shirt. It's got the McNess logo
Wow.
on this side and my name on that side with the button
Yeah,
down
good.
on the front, and I look just the same as our workers on the floor.
God bless you. I love that. I actually love that. So it's been great talking about these things, Mark. I think, as you may know, in my program here, we always wrap with a couple of key questions for our key executives, and the first one is, if you were a younger man, let's rewind 30 years, and you were able to give yourself some advice from all of the things you've learned in your career. What advice would you give yourself?
Well, I learned this over time. And I think I do this now. Um, but I would say be willing to be uncomfortable. And that is be willing to move, Be willing to learn new things, be willing to go up to people and introduce yourself and ask them their names, try all kinds of food wherever you are.
Mhm.
And no matter where you are, adjust to their culture. Don't make them adjust to you as an American. If you're in
Mhm.
France,
Yeah.
be respectful of their culture. If you're in the Middle
Mhm.
East, adjust to their culture. And I
Mhm.
think if you do that, you will be much more accepted. You'll have a much more enjoyable experience when you go there. And I remember working with a guy at Cargill who said he had done that. He said, I started working for Cargill at the same time with a bunch of other people. He said they
Yeah.
weren't willing to move and they were a lot smarter than I was. He said,
Mm.
I've advanced a lot more in my career simply because I was willing to
Sure.
do the hard things and willing to move. And I think he was right.
Yeah, and it is a difficult thing sometimes, especially as a younger person, to really open up and make yourself a little vulnerable and try new things sometimes. So I see that. So I think that's good advice. And the more we can do that to open up ourselves to other people and to their culture and to their way of life, I think it just reinforces what we talked about a few minutes ago, that mutual human respect. I wish I had a dollar for every time someone in another country told me that their market's different. Of course it is. Of course it is different, but it's interesting. There's a lot of similarities there as well, right? Because in your business, the people who make the product, the people who deliver the product, the people who use the product, the farm animals that you're treating. Oh, there's so many similarities across, that business, country to country to country. And we tend to focus on the differences more than the similarities. But what I found in working internationally with people is that it's only when I would do what you just said, where I respect their culture, I get to know them, and I don't push my point of view or my lifestyle or my culture on them, that we can get down into the details and find the similarities that often is the place where we can find the synergies, right? So
Yep,
yeah, that's a,
that's
that's
right.
a really that's really a great kind of insight there. All right, let's fast forward in the other direction time-wise now. Let's imagine we go forward 20 years. You and I are sitting, in the woods in a cabin, kind of relaxing, looking back on our lives and our careers, having a cup of coffee in the morning, watching the sun come up. And what are you going to tell me you're most proud of?
Well, this is probably a little trite. Maybe everybody says this, but I'm most proud of my kids.
Yeah,
And I would even go so far as to say I'm most proud of the fact that I didn't miss my kids' events. No matter how busy I
good for
was or
you.
how much
Good for you.
traveling I was doing.
Hmm.
And I look back on it, and my oldest son was a pretty good soccer player.
Hmm.
I missed one of his games. I mean, as a
Oh,
freshman, he
that's amazing.
started he started as a freshman goalie on the varsity soccer team. I missed one
Wow.
of his games. And
Wow.
I know I
That's
missed
great.
it for a meeting, and I
Yeah.
regret missing that game. I don't
Mhm.
have any idea what that meeting was about, but I know I missed that
But
game,
you
and I
did game.
regret that. And I never
Yeah.
missed another game. My other two kids, my son and my daughter, were in theater. I never missed any of their theater events. And I'm very proud of that. You don't get a do-over on those. You can always have another meeting, but you never get a
Yeah.
do-over on your kids' events. So I would say I'm most proud of my kids, and I'm most proud of the fact that I didn't miss their events. And I tell the managers that report to me, don't miss your kids' events, because if you miss them, that's on you, not on me. You can
Hmm.
plan your
Good
schedule
for you.
and you need to make sure you get there. And that's what I would tell your listeners. Get there.
Yeah. Get there. I love it. I love it. I'm sure I don't have a strong memory of all of the events from both of my kids. I know they were very, very important to me and I made them when I could. But you're right. You can't replay those moments. I was just telling another colleague this morning on another call. He just had his first child, a young baby girl in London. And we were talking about how amazing it is that there's another dimension of love inside of you that you don't even realize is there until you have your first child. It's probably the greatest love that we'll ever know on this earth, that we can experience. And um, you know, really treating your kids the way you said you wanted to treat them is so important because it goes by so fast. I'm thinking back to my daughter and my son who are 27 and 28 right now, and boy, did it go by fast. And some of those
Two
moments,
weeks.
yeah,
Two weeks
feels,
is what and my son
yeah,
has, and now I've got these grandbabies, and there's a whole new dimension of love for these
yeah,
grandbabies.
yeah,
And I tell my
exactly,
son, our little Cooper, who's going to be 4 in a couple of weeks, and little
right.
Jade, who's a year old, and I told my son, in about 2 weeks, those kids are going to be 18. So
Yeah.
enjoy every minute of those little ones.
Absolutely right. I gave the same advice to this fellow I talked with this morning. Well, that's really important. I think to keep things in balance. Your comment about keeping balance in your life and making sure you do what's important, not just what's urgent, is always
Yeah.
good advice, especially from key executives. We get pulled in a lot of different directions all the time, and we've got to prioritize. And so that's great. A great thought to kind of end our conversation with, Mark. Thanks so much for being on the program today. If someone who is listening wants to get a hold of First McNess or wants to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
Well, I've got a crazy last name, as you know, but I'll spell it. It's Mark.Poeschl at McNess.com, or go
Yeah.
to our website, McNess.com.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for being with us, Mark. It's been a real treat to have you share some of your experiences, and we look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you, Wayne. Appreciate the invitation.
All the best and God bless.
Thanks.
Well, that's it for Driven to Lead today. We really appreciate you being with us. Share this with a friend or a business colleague if you would. And if I could remind you again, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. We're very grateful for that. So until next time, always remember the high road leads to a better place.